Long before Africa was carved up by foreign powers, it was home to mighty kingdoms ruled by wise, bold, and fearless leaders. One of those leaders was Nzinga Mbande, a young woman born into royalty in the 1680s in what is now Angola. She was the daughter of a king, and from the very beginning, she was treated differently. She wasn't raised just to marry or sit quietly in the shadows. She was raised to lead. While her brothers trained in war and politics, Nzinga trained too. She listened to court meetings, studied how her father made decisions, and asked hard questions. She learned how to speak not just her own language, but Portuguese too, the language of the European Empire starting to move into her land. Most women were left out of these lessons. Nzinga didn't just join, she mastered them. But Angola was not at peace. The Portuguese, like many Europeans at the time, wanted more land, more resources, and more control. And most of all, they wanted slaves, to ship across the ocean and sell. They forced their way into kingdoms, made fake peace deals, and backed them up with guns. When Nzinga's brother became king, he struggled to stop them. So in 1622, when the pressure got too high, he sent Nzinga to meet with the Portuguese governor and negotiate peace. What happened in that room became legend. Nzinga arrived dressed like a queen, calm, tall, powerful. But when she entered the governor's chamber, there was only one chair, and it was taken. The message was clear. The Portuguese didn't see her as equal. They wanted her to stand like a servant. But Nzinga didn't flinch. She looked around, and without a word, she motioned to one of her attendants. He got down on his hands and knees, and Nzinga sat on his back, eye to eye with the governor. She wasn't going to kneel for anyone. Then she started talking. She didn't shout. She didn't beg. She negotiated. She asked for peace, protection for her people, and an end to the slave raids. Her words were sharp and wise. The governor listened. And somehow, against all odds, Nzinga won. She left that meeting with a peace deal, and with the Portuguese finally treating her like a leader. But the peace didn't last. The Portuguese broke their promises. Again. They continued stealing land, capturing people, and pushing their way deeper into Africa. And then Nzinga's brother died. Some say he was sick, others say he gave up. Either way, the throne was empty, and Nzinga didn't hesitate. She declared herself queen. Not everyone liked it. In her culture, a woman ruling was rare. But Nzinga didn't back down. She dressed in men's clothes, led armies, and demanded to be called king. Not because she didn't love being a woman, but because she wanted to show that she could rule just like any man, maybe better. She knew she couldn't beat the Portuguese with swords alone. So she used her mind. She formed alliances with other African kingdoms. She reached out to the Dutch, who were also enemies of the Portuguese, and made deals with them. She moved her entire kingdom inland to escape Portuguese control, rebuilt it from the ground up, and trained her people for war. She made her new capital in the city of Matamba and turned it into a powerful, organized, and independent nation. For nearly 40 years, Nzinga fought back. She led battles on horseback. She snuck behind enemy lines. She used clever traps, surprise attacks, and perfect timing. Her army included men, women, and even former slaves, people who believed in her cause and were ready to follow her into anything. And the Portuguese? They could never quite catch her. Even when they surrounded her, she always found a way out. Nzinga was more than a warrior. She was a strategist. She knew when to fight and when to wait. She signed peace when it made sense, broke it when she had to, and always kept the upper hand. She used her knowledge of European politics, religion, and language to play both sides. She spoke like them when it helped, but never forgot who she was. She also cared deeply for her people. She protected women and children. She worked to free enslaved Africans and give them new homes. She made sure villages were rebuilt, food was stored, and culture was passed down. Even in the middle of war, she led with heart, and slowly, the tides began to turn. The Portuguese grew tired. They couldn't win. They couldn't outsmart her. In the 1650s, they finally agreed to a new peace. This time, it lasted. Nzinga spent her final years rebuilding Matamba, making sure her people were safe, her legacy was strong, and her enemies could never take her land again. She died in 1663 at over 80 years old. Think about that. A Black African woman, born in the 1500s, ruled for 4 decades, faced down empires, and died undefeated. She didn't leave behind castles or gold. She left behind something stronger: pride, power, a story no one could erase. For years after her death, people tried to forget her. History books left out her name. Statues weren't built, but the people remembered. Her courage lived in stories passed down from mothers to daughters, fathers to sons. In Angola, she's now a national hero. In Africa, she's seen as one of the greatest leaders of all time. And around the world, people are finally learning her name. Queen Nzinga didn't rise with help. She rose because she was sharp, fearless, and determined. She didn't wait for history to remember her. She made sure it couldn't forget. She didn't beg for peace. She earned it. She didn't just rule, she did it.